Hey there. So if you've ever worked on any kind of team project, you've probably been there. You've got multiple people trying to edit the same files, changes just vanish into thin air, and then you hear that one dreaded question. Who broke the build? Well, today, we're going to dive into the systems that are designed to tame all that chaos. We're talking about version and change control.
So here's what we've got on tap. First, we'll talk about why change can be such a problem. Then, we'll look at the big picture solution, SCM. After that, we'll break down the two most important parts, the how-to of change control and the who and when of version control. And finally, we'll see how they fit together perfectly.
All right, so let's start by painting a picture. Just imagine you've got a team of developers all jumping into the same codebase, working on the same files, but with absolutely no system in place to manage what they're doing. You know, it's not really a question of if things are going to go sideways, but when and how badly.
And without a system, you run into these classic headaches. I mean, look at that first one, concurrent access. That's the absolute nightmare, where two people save their changes to the same file and boom, one person's hard work is just gone, wiped out. Then you've got the nightmare of trying to undo one tiny mistake that's now tangled up with a dozen good changes. You have no idea who changed what or why they did it. It is, simply put, a recipe for chaos.
But thankfully, there is a better way. There's a whole framework designed to bring some serious order to all of this potential chaos, and it's called Software Configuration Management, or SCM for short.
So, what is SCM at its heart? Well, it's really all about one thing: tracking and controlling changes. The whole point is to make sure that no matter how big your team is or how complex the project gets, the integrity of the software itself is protected, from the very first line of code to the final release.
Now, the whole SCM process has a few moving parts, but for today, we're going to zero in on the two big ones, the ones that pretty much everyone on a project team deals with every single day: change control and version control.
So let's kick things off with change control. Now, this is a really important distinction. This isn't about tracking changes that already happened. No, this is the formal process for deciding if a change should even happen in the first place. It's the gatekeeper.
This quote really nails it. It's all about making sure every single modification is deliberate. It has to be evaluated, it has to be authorized. This is what stops those random, unchecked changes from sneaking into the project and causing a whole world of hurt down the road.
You know, any change, big or small, follows this clear life cycle. It all kicks off with an event creation. Someone identifies a need, maybe a bug fix or a cool new feature. Then it gets analyzed to see, what's the real impact here. From there, a formal decision is made, yes or no. If it gets the green light, the change is planned out, built, tested, and finally, the whole process is formally closed out.
And this diagram gives us a great visual of that journey. See how it starts with an idea? That idea gets documented in a proper change request. Then it's assessed, it's evaluated, it's prioritized against everything else, a decision gets made, and only then does it actually get added to the project plan. It's a structured, logical path from a simple request to a real-world feature.
So, who makes that big final decision? Well, that's the job of the Change Control Board, or the CCB. Think of this group as the project's gatekeepers. They're usually made up of developers and other key stakeholders, and they're the ones who look at all the analysis and make the final call on whether a change goes forward or not.
Okay, so the CCB gave the thumbs up to a change. Awesome! But now what? How do we actually manage the real work of putting that change into the code? Well, my friends, that is where version control steps in.
Version control is, basically, a time machine for your project. It's the system of record. It meticulously logs every single modification made to every file. It knows who made the change and when they made it. And, super importantly, it prevents those unauthorized or conflicting changes from ever happening. This diagram here shows a really fundamental concept called the reserve/restore model. So the whole project, all the code, lives in this central repository. When a developer needs to work on a file, they reserve it. What that does is it pulls a copy to their own private workspace, and crucially, it locks the original file. Once they're done with their changes, they restore it back to the repository, which unlocks it for the next person.
Now, the key thing to grasp here is that locking system. Because only one person can reserve a file at a time, it completely 100% solves that concurrent access problem we talked about earlier. No more overriding someone else's work.
Now, modern systems like Git handle this a bit differently, but understanding this core lock idea is absolutely key to getting why version control is so powerful.
All right, let's bring this all home and connect the dots. We've talked about change control, that's our decision-making process, and we've talked about version control, that's our tracking system. They're two different things for sure, but they absolutely depend on each other to work.
So here's the perfect way to think about it. Change control is all about the big question: should we make this change? It's the formal approval workflow. Version control, on the other hand, answers the practical questions: what change was made, who made it, and when. It's the technical system that manages the file's history. You can't have one without the other. And that right there is the big takeaway. For a truly stable, manageable project, you need both. You need the formal approval from change control acting as a gatekeeper, making sure only good ideas get through. And you need the detailed history from version control acting as the project's perfect memory, the librarian that tracks every single detail.
So think about it. The next time you're working on something with a team, whether it's software, a presentation, anything, ask yourself, where do we need a gatekeeper to approve our ideas? And where do we need a librarian to track our history? Because having the right structure isn't about killing creativity. It's about building a solid foundation where your best ideas can actually thrive.